Hello and welcome to Defence Line, a weekly program on defence, security and more. In this episode of Defence Line, we discuss whether the armed forces should be used in anti-Maoist operations in the affected states. Besides a battle maneuver range and the sub-area headquarters, an army training facility is being set up in Chhattisgarh. Media reports suggest that a three-way discussion process is underway between the army, the defence ministry and the state government. In the light of our experience in Northeast, Punjab and J&K, is the use of army for internal security in this manner against Maoists desirable? This is what we will discuss in today's episode of Defence Line. Joining us for the discussion are Brigadier D.S. Dhillon, former Colonel General Staff of a division deployed in Northeast, Major General K.S. Bajwa, former Chief of Staff of a corps in the Northeast, and Lieutenant General B.K.N. Chibba, former Corps Commander, Security Advisor and Governor of Punjab. Welcome to the studio, gentlemen. But before we get into the discussion, let us look at this report.
The army was successful in helping rein the militancy in Punjab. It has been successful in cutting down the insurgency in Jammu and Kashmir. And in Northeast too, it has helped restore normalcy. Now it is being ready to engage with the Maoists. Last year, the Cabinet Committee on Security cleared an army battle maneuver range on the edge of the Maoist-dominated Abuchmat forest in Chhattisgarh. Though as of now it is said that the move was meant only for training, not for operations. But the army is wary as it may get embroiled in legal disputes in an area where the Armed Forces Special Powers Act has not been invoked. It has sought clear-cut norms on what it could do and what it couldn't if it came into conflict with Maoists. So, the guidelines are being framed too. But will it repeat its success against the Maoists too? Moreover, is this the army's job to tackle internal security?
We will be in conversation with General Chibber, General Bajwa and Brigadier Dhillon. General Chibber, to start with you, the Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh has said that the Maoist violence is the greatest threat the country faces today. So should the army be used against the Maoists?
I think this question needs a lot of in-depth study and a certain amount of knowledge. Army should not be used at the drop of a hat. Have the situation become so bad in that area that all our security agencies which have been raised, trained, armed by the government and by their departments for this purpose, have they failed?
It looks like it. You know, the central police forces haven't been able to control the violence there.
Why have they not been able to control the violence? I think this is an issue which needs much greater study and examination and a neutral examination, not by vested interests, whether they are...
You said a neutral examination. What kind of a neutral examination do you have in mind?
The causes for their failure.
So who should do that?
There should be some people who are well versed and known for their integrity. Because after all, these people who are wanting certain reforms which this nation has failed to give them, and they have raised their head collectively, and we feel that they are a threat to the nation. Yes, they may be a threat to a particular government. So the question is that the examination should be such to exactly bring out where we have failed as a nation, as a army also, why not? And the police forces and other paramilitary forces, etc.
General Bajwa, do you agree with General Chibber that it calls for a neutral examination?
I think we've got to be first clear in our mind the distinctions between the insurgencies in Nagaland and Mizoram and what is doing, Maoists are doing, or what happened in Punjab. You see, there's a basic difference between them, and the approach should also be tailored according to that. In Mizoram, Nagaland, there was insurgency by people who wanted to secede from India. In Punjab, as a frontline state, there was also the undertones of secession. In this case of Maoists, they are wanting a change of government. It's a political system, it's a political protest which they are emphasizing with the help of violence.
So, General Bajwa, is that why both the Army Chief and the Air Force Chief are reluctant to get into the situation there?
Philosophy of operations against such insurgencies are different. The philosophies that were used in Nagaland and Mizoram are entirely different. the philosophies that are used in Punjab were also different because they're in between the two.
In the eastern sector, we do have the example of Operation Steeplechase, which was used against the Naxalites in Bengal in 1971.
You see, that again was a mistake. I think that shouldn't have been done. That again we were forced into it by the government. It's the easiest thing to turn to the army and say deal with it, because all the other agencies, which General Shabar has pointed out already, have failed completely. They're not trained, they're not organized, their philosophy is not trained to conduct this purpose, their leadership is so bad they cannot deal with this. We have to make a change. We've got to make a basic change in our outlooks as well as in the training of these paramilitary organizations.
We have to make a basic change in our thinking. Brigadier Dhillon, you worked in the Northeast. So what is your take? Do you agree with the two generals?
No, I agree with the two generals. The first thing that's very clear is that what happened in the Northeast was actually a follow-up of the colonial era. You see, the colonial era was such that there was a boundary drawn between Burma and India in 1836 or 1837. And that became sacrosanct. So when Britain decided to give independence to India, of course the Muslims created a different situation. They said, we have a very uncertain future in a democratic country of this nature. You see, after all, whatever is your Constitution of India is a follow-up of the Government of India Act of 1935. So the point that you really need to address is that in the Northeast, the people were upset that you have actually destroyed our way of life, our way of living, and the borders that you have are arbitrary. So for God's sake, give us a certain amount of...
Dhillon, I thought this is exactly what the people in the Maoist affected areas are saying today.
No, they are not saying
the
that.
The tribals are saying that you disturbed our way of life.
No. If you see the Telangana movement of 1948 onwards, when they were asking for a statehood, they were fighting against the Nizam of Hyderabad. 1948 onwards. Now thereafter, what really has happened is that the name of Naxalbari, the Naxalites started from near Siliguri, fine, no problem. But the issue is that here is the tribal area which has historically been economically, socially and culturally deprived.
So here it is basically a social and an economic problem.
Yeah, and it is also a problem of what the states wield a power of, and now the new system is come up of capitalism. You see, India, whatever it might be, the biggest problem today is that your economy is on capitalism. You are ignoring the interest of the agrarian society, 80% of it in these 7 states.
Well, Brigadier Dhillon, I think you opened Pandora's box. Discussing capitalism, I think, is outside the scope of our discussion today.
Yes. It's not outside the scope. This problem in this area is that now.
See,
problem is that. Yes, gentlemen.
May I also add something to that? You see, the other thing which is a phenomena of our political system, we have these huge, states in which people are elected by majority, but the small minority, the small groups like we have in Jharkhand for instance, and like we have had in Vidarbha and all other places, they get neglected. With the result is they are politically deprived people, and this is where the main political protest is coming within the country.
So you mean to say that the aspirations of the smaller groups, the minorities, are not exactly being addressed?
Not being met.
General Shabar, since there was a reference to Punjab here and you had a long experience, you were the corps commander in Punjab. How was that experience in Punjab, first in 84 and then 89?
84 I won't be able to say much because I wasn't here at that time. But 89 I was very much there. I was here from 87 onwards. The situation had gone so bad in Punjab that there was no administration, there was no law and order. The police forces, I don't mean any particular one, but all those who were supposed to maintain law and order were now looking the other way around. And I think it was really high time that the army was used here.
But General Shabar, there were other corps commanders at that point of time who did not share your point of view.
Yes, they were away, they were not in Amritsar. They were not knowing what was the problem. They didn't have the experience of Northeast where I was MGGS, I was BGS in those corps in the Northeast which I had had. And therefore I said yes. When I was asked what is this issue, what do you say, should we do it, should we get in, I said yes. If we don't get in now, we will have to go in later and we will then suffer much higher casualties, the army. Now I am confident we will sort it out within a year.
Was there any ill effect of the use of army in Punjab?
No.
By way of discipline
No.
or training or whatever?
You see, first of all, I would tell you that the civil people, population, was so fed up of that terrorism at that point of time that they felt that the government and everybody, center and state, everyone was after their blood, and that the terrorists were being let loose on them by the Sarkar. And when the army moved in, initially there was a little reluctance on their part, but when they saw the army operations and they saw the peaceful nights that they started sleeping, they welcomed the army.
See,
And
What was the
this
experience,
had a very
General
good effect
Bajwa,
on-
what is the experience in the Northeast?
there's a difference between Punjab and Northeast. In the army, in the Punjab, the army is held in high esteem because bulk of the army used to be at one time from Punjab. In the Northeast, we were to some extent alien.
I would like to point out one thing.
Yes.
In 1987, in 1988, army was not held in good esteem in Punjab. People in the villages, I had commanded
Especially
a
after the
battalion.
84
Yes, because of
experience.
that, after effect of the
That is
Operation
different.
Woodrose and
Yes,
what not.
yes.
That is different. But the fact is the basic respect for the army still existed, because I tell you why I say that. Because I have my land and properties in Qadian, which was in the center of Punjab's insurgency at that point of time. And to manage that, I used to go there every month. And I used to go there without any security. People said, why don't you carry even a gun or have a security? I said, no. I said, I'm a Punjabi. I know these people. I know them very well. They know me also to some extent, and I will not do that. And I went there quite safely. I went to very frequently, talked to those people, discussed with them. And the basic thing was, again, as I mentioned here, that there was a dichotomy. The dichotomy was that the people who could protect them, they were, doing a partisan role. The police was doing partisan
Well, what about
roles.
the Northeast?
Northeast, as I mentioned to you, that we were entirely new. The army was a new factor. And when we went in, and I tell you this now, I have experience of Mizoram in this sense that when the Mizoram insurgency was at its height, I was then a G1 in command headquarters in Eastern Command, and I was dealing with it. And I know that we were, we had taken some measures to protect the people, like grouping of villages and things like that. They were unpopular in the beginning. When they found that we were helpful, we were helping them in every way, the army started gaining in esteem in there. And eventually, the political process also stepped in closely.
Talking of the Northeast, let me ask Brigadier Dhillon. Brigadier Dhillon, did this affect the training and the morale of the army when army was deployed in the Northeast for a long time?
Well, in a way, when you look back in retrospect, your 1971 Bangladesh operations were facilitated because the army had been there in the Northeast for a while. So that way the spin-offs were there for the nation to take, no doubt about it. But then when you see the Punjab problem, the way I see it, it's that it's a follow-up of a non-federal structure that was being thought of prior to the independence, and the whole movement in Punjab was basically on Sarkaria Commission saying that we need to give greater powers to the states, and the mess up created at the center, and subsequently the army jumped into it in 1984, and as the general said later on, they redeemed themselves because between the terrorists and the police they had made life miserable.
So in Punjab, the army in a way redeemed the situation and redeemed their own reputation.
No, but again remember the point that you have to
please,
view it in context of what is being talked about of the Maoists is that here is a mess created by our politicians. Here is a partition of India and Pakistan. The after effects of it have yet not been controlled. So the army, when it gets itself being utilized to cover their mistakes,